Black cisgender heterosexual identified men are killing Black trans women. Black ones.
We are not talking about it in the church.
Those street guys are already engineers. If they're mixing drugs and stuff together, they're chemical engineers.
If you're just like, yeah, let's kill 50 cops just because, that's only a fraction of the Black people that they killed. Wait, now you're talking about my wife.
For those of you who are joining in, we are talking about just the housing in the Black community and owning property, why it's important, and how to get yourself in there.
When I think of financial literacy, I just don't think of the classroom work. I think some of it is practical application.
I'm scared, especially, calling them to arms, talking about poll workers or poll watchers. That is rooted in history of voter suppression and intimidation.
Joe Biden needs to make that a part of his educational platform.
Call that shit out.
I don't see much value in you speaking in tongues, and yet when you speak in English, you don't say nothing for my people.
Many of the reasons why we're dying is because of the conditions we live under that cause our health to be so bad, and that cause it's the food, it's the water, it's clean that shit up first.
When their fathers had prostate cancer, I had like a 150% chance of getting cancer, being diagnosed with cancer. I had a friend that did a raw vegan diet, 20 years remission, had thyroid cancer, never had surgery. I'm like, that's what I'm doing.
This week in Black People Shit, Black Republican Lives Matter. I'm your host, Chrystee Pharris. As the Republican National Convention gets underway this week, many Black Republicans like former NFL running back Herschel Walker and South Carolina Senator Tim Scott showed enthusiastic support for their grand old party. For years, many well-known Black Republicans like Dr. Martin Luther King Sr., Tony Brown, Candace Owens, and Frederick Douglass have been vocal about their need for more Black people to join the Republican Party. Historically, Black people have always been a part of the Republican Party since 1872 with its first Black congressman, Hiram Revel, Jefferson Long, and Benjamin S. Turner. But if Republicans are the party of Lincoln, then why do they get such low Black voter turnout during elections? Joining us today to discuss the role of African Americans in the Republican Party is host of YouTube's Consider Culture, Chi Brown, and host of the Ask a Black Conservative podcast, Clarity Speakz. With me, as always, is actress, commentator, and defender of all things Kamala Harris, Janora McDuffie, and writer, conspiracy theorist, and missing member of the Wu-Tang Clan, Abdul Majid. Let me make sure everybody gets on in here. Adding everybody to the stream. Yeah. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thanks for joining us today. Before we get started, I just want to make sure I remind everybody, if you are watching this show, please share it right now. Do a watch party. I think this is a great discussion to discuss both sides of the party. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you have any questions or comments for today, you can join in the chat because we would love to hear from you. The chat is in the feed. All right, so welcome to the show. How are you guys feeling today?
All right.
Awesome sauce.
Yeah, so let's get started. Where is Janora?
She went out. I don't know. I think
I think she needed to go in the corner for a second and do a little time before we got started. And so I think that's what's going on. So let me just ask you guys right away. How did you become a Republican? And for instance, were you always a Republican, or did you end up doing it, joining a little bit later? I'll ask, let's go to Chi first.
Okay. Yeah, so I wasn't always a Republican, and I'd like to consider myself a conservative more than I'd like to consider myself a Republican per se, because I think my values match up with that. But no, I wasn't always Republican. I think both of my parents were Democrats, and I remember being grown up as a kid, and my mother telling me, when you go vote, when I got voter age, she was like, when you go vote, make sure you vote a straight Democratic ticket. If you haven't researched any of the policies or anything, just vote straight Democrat. you know, I think as I started growing up and reading some, I think there was this thing with Bill Cosby. I don't know if anybody remembers Bill Cosby's notorious pound cake speech, but a lot of Black people came down on him for that speech. And so I read this book, Enough by Juan Williams, which kind of introduced me to some conservative concepts, and then later to John McWhorter and Thomas Sowell and others. And after a while, after reading all these things, I kind of realized I was a conservative.
Okay. How about you, Clarity Speakz?
Yeah. No, I've not always been a voting Republican. I became a Republican in a Bible study, actually. It was a result of studying the Bible with a group of people where I learned the history of the political parties. And so I learned the history of the Democratic Party. I learned the history of the Republican Party. And then, much like Chi, realized that Republican platform aligned more with my core values. And yeah, so that's pretty much it in a nutshell. It's a lot to unpack, but that's a synopsis.
I love it. I know. Go ahead, Janora. I see like you, Janora does a thing where she's like,
oh, this time, all of my facial expressions have to do with my technology. Daggone it, but we are not Mercury or Satan. Stop this conversation today. Or to it. I didn't get a chance to hop in at the very top. Thank you again, Chi and Clarity. You called me the defender of all things Kamala. Today, I'm also the defender of all things Obama. Y'all wanted to come at my man last week, so this represent. And my last thing before I hop back in is a happy birthday to my mom. I wanted to make sure I said that at the top of the show. Happy birthday, Mama. They are from North Carolina and they tune in every week and I love them so much. And it also have a lot in common with Clarity and with Chi. I think both North Carolinians representing, right? Yep. All day. Yes, I love it. So with keeping with the love and keeping with starting with finding what we have in common, talk about the reaction now that you both consider yourself conservative, Republican, or on just that end of the spectrum. What do your friends think? What does your family think? Because we're from the same place.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Chi.
For me, it's been rough. I mean, you know, I went to an HBCU. A lot of my friends have kind of disowned me. Like, they still follow me on Facebook enough so that they can throw a couple of jabs here and there, and I hope they're watching now. But they throw their jabs. You know, unfortunately, my mother got sick and passed away before we really got to have a conversation about it. But me and my father have had several conversations about it. It's kind of like, I can't believe you like Trump. I just can't believe it. He's terrible. He's so I mean, it's and now that I'm kind of more you know, I'm out there with my conservatism. I'm every post I put up on Facebook is public. You know, I do a very public show, so people know about it. People that sometimes I see people at my job kind of sneer at me and things like that. But you know, it is what it is.
Yeah. So let me just ask you, just to follow up on that. Did they stop being your friend, or did you start getting feedback or pushback when you became a Republican, or when you were a Trump supporter?
No,
or both.
It's more the conservatism. I mean, well, it's not actually. I wouldn't say it's the conservative. It's the ideas. I think that people push back because of the ideas, not so much because they know I'm a Republican or a conservative. Is when they hear me talk about a particular idea, or I go against the grain on something that many Black people are in lockstep with, then I immediately become the enemy. So.
And then how about for you, Clarity?
Yeah, my cousin unfollowed me on Instagram about 3 weeks ago because she just couldn't. She just said, "I love you, but I just can't," or whatever. So I was like, okay. Everyone in my household, my mom's not really into politics, but my aunt, everybody love Obama. Okay. 2008, they would call me. I was living in Atlanta at the time. They would call me like, "You better stop talking about that Obama on the internet." You know, they was upset at me. You know, so like, yeah, I'm just a polka dot unicorn in my family, and it's okay. They tolerate me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I feel like Abdul's got something he want to say real quick.
So I've watched the convention as of the last week, and I guess we'll get into that topic in more detail. But I guess my greater question is, looking at all the hosts of who came to speak, are Black conservatives a truly force in the conservative party, or is it just plain tokenism? Are they just using you as optics? Because it seemed like over the past couple of days during the convention, it seemed more optics than it did anything else substantive.
Who would like to answer that one? I'll let you go, Charity, because you look like you got something to say. Go ahead.
Yes,
You was like,
Well, I think that I'm talking to the mic this way. I think that we could ask that same question of Blacks in the Democrat Party. I think we could ask that the question of why have you remained such a token? You know what I mean? At least we do have in this particular election cycles a few little tangibles, but Blacks in the Democrat Party have kind of served to me as like a political booty call for the Democrat Party. So I think that question, if we're gonna start there, that I don't know that is fair, because we could say that on both sides is what I'm trying to say. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. We could say that really on both sides.
No, I don't disagree with your response with regard to it can be seen on both sides. My point is, I guess my specific question would be more of specifically what values are you talking about that align with the Republican Party, because a lot of the things that they've done historically after post Emancipation Proclamation and things of that nature haven't gone, specifically economically, haven't gone in the way of Black people or for Black people. So
for me, when you're talking about economics, like first of all, I don't jive with this whole idea that if there's some particular policy that's going to help Blacks, like you shouldn't, as a politician, if I were a politician, I wouldn't be opting to just help Blacks. I'd be trying to get policies that lifted everybody up, that would help and benefit everyone. I don't know that there is a particular policy that I could think that would to implement that would be specific to targeting Blacks. You know what I mean?
So, clarity.
No, go ahead. You can do your follow-up. Go ahead.
No, I didn't want clarity to say her piece. I didn't want to jump all over her statement.
Finished. I'm just saying that.
Oh, that was it.
That is just often that's kind of low-hanging fruit, right? As for to ask that, right? Because
what do you mean?
The low-hanging fruit of saying, "Oh, Blacks in the Republican Party, that you looks like a token." You know what I mean?
I agree with you. It goes both ways, though. I think it looks the same way with the Democratic Party. I'm not opposed to the idea. I care about what happens for Black people, regardless of the party. I care specifically what happens for African Americans in this country, and they look like tokens on both sides. Okay.
So then the things in terms of the prison reform, opportunity zones,
HBC.
None of that means anything. None of that is valuable to you. You know what I mean? These are like actual tangibles. It doesn't matter, and it's not even about whether or not.
I think a lot of times, if you look at things like opportunity zones, they look more like Trojan horse. If you look more into the details of opportunity zones, they look like capital gain. They look like ways to hide capital gains. That's all it specifically is. If you look at the details, so you can offset your defer your money to like 2026 or something like that. I think with Black people specifically, there needs to. I believe in reparations. I don't know what you guys believe in, but I specifically believe in reparations. I believe it's not a handout. I believe it's a debt. And I think things like opportunity zone is gentrification by another name. The language that it's set up right now, it doesn't seem that it's specifically helping the Black people. It's helping the neighborhood that Black people live in, but not specifically allowing Black people. Even if you look at the opportunity zone fund, the way the opportunity zone fund is set up and how you qualify for opportunity zone funds, It doesn't seem like it's helping specifically Black people in a neighborhood.
And also too, like, you know, I'm looking at this whole thing where they were talking about schools being opportunities for everyone. But yet, when we were watching the Republican, the first night, the convention, they were making it seem like we want to have, you know, for all these kids, Black kids, white kids, everybody should be able to have these opportunities to go to these schools. But yet, they're still pushing fear about moving into those neighborhoods. You know, with single parent home people, they're going to open it up. The Democrats are going to have all these people move into our neighborhoods. They're going to take away your guns. They're going to break into your homes and stuff like that. So that's where I'm like, well, how are they going to get the opportunity to go to these good schools if now they're not able to move into these neighborhoods?
If they're
You cut out on me. She cut out on me.
I couldn't hear the last part of that question.
How are these kids going to be able to go to better schools if they're not allowed to be in this neighborhood, if they're pushing for these kids not to be in these neighborhoods?
I don't know of them pushing for kids not to be in particular neighborhoods.
Well, they push the fear about single parent homes being able to move into into suburban areas.
Right. I mean, but is that specifically a Black thing to single parent homes?
Not necessarily a Black thing, but I just feel like everything that they were pushing was against Black people. It was like a little bit of a subtle, like, okay, the looters, the rioters, Black Lives Matter.
The looters and rioters have been, a majority, I think, have been white, actually.
Of course, we all know. I mean, a lot of us know that, but the way the media has been showing it, they haven't showed that it was white people.
Well, this is the thing with the media. I think the media is often pushing narratives for the benefit of themselves. They do this kind of thing so that they can get money. They get people agitated. They want to get people in their feelings for a reason, because that means you're going to click, you're going to share, you're going to give them ad revenue. And if you're going to be critical of the media on one end of the spectrum, you have to be critical of the media again on the other side when there's other things that are happening. Particularly when they're saying things that you like that may not necessarily be true. So I sometimes have an issue with anybody bring up the media, because I think that the media is in large part at fault for the reason that we have so much derision between the parties and people, race, and everything else like that.
It all started with Birth of a Nation.
Miss Janora.
Go ahead, Janora. Janora, I want to jump in, and then we'll get to some of these questions that have been here.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of where I wanted to go, because I do think before we got too deep into certain policies and even certain terminology that might not fully be knowledge base for all of our audience, because I'd raised my question so you could clarify what you guys were talking about when you talked about the opportunity zone, but I don't want to go back there. I want to kind of address some of the questions and one of my main questions, because I do think, just like this last conversation, where you talked about mainstream, or not even mainstream media, just media in general, a huge part of why we are divided and what continues to fuel the fire. Fully agree with you there. So some of that stuff we agree with, but what I feel like the biggest divider isn't just the media, but it's the man that lives in the White House. So if you could please for us clarify, one, if you are a Trump supporter or if you're just a Republican or conservative, and two, if you are, address some of the questions on the side, specifically about why. Maybe just why. And I always want to make sure that in this conversation specifically, that I'm approaching it all with curiosity and not judgment, because I really do want to understand. So I think this is a great platform for us to have an intellectual, respectful conversation about some shit we just don't understand. Oh, daggone it, I cussed again. My mama got that last week. But I'm excited about this conversation so I can honestly ask these questions too, not just as a host, but as Janora, seeking to understand and build bridges. So that was a long way to ask about your support of Trump.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think Trump is an interesting character. I think that, a lot of people likes Trump prior to him running for president. I think that Trump was a likable character. I think if Trump were a Democrat, they would love him. They would absolutely. I think he shows some of the characteristics that Democrats actually love. I just think that because he's a Republican, he's been maligned so much. I mean, the media, again, this goes back to the media. I think the media covers him so negatively that it's difficult for anybody watching to see him in any kind of positive light. Because, I mean, I think there was a poll, a study, and they basically said that 96% of his coverage is negative. Now, how is anybody supposed to see him in a positive light with that kind of media coverage? Now, for me, in terms of why I like Trump, I mean, I'm a Trump supporter, but mainly I'm a conservative. I think that many of the things that he does jive with my values. And in terms of his personality, he might not have the award-winning personality that people are used to in a politician, but I think in this time where you have people who don't seem to care about facts anymore and are so emotional about things that you need somebody to kind of beat that into people's head that, hey, look, these are the facts, and I don't care what you say about them, about me, because a lot of times it was just like, okay, this person is a racist, and they'd shut up. But Trump's not the type of person who's just going to shut up, and I think that's really why a lot of people don't like him, is because he's not going to be quiet if you call him a racist or if you call him sexist or whatever else you call him. Whatever you call him, he's just not. And I think that's the kind of personality that the Republicans needed, because a lot of Republicans were looked at as like weenies and wimps. They would go and cower into their corners immediately as soon as you said these sorts of things about them. So I guess.
Don't you?
Go ahead, Abdul.
Don't you think that a lot of the things that they criticize Trump on are based off his own words and actions? Like he does get a lot of media coverage, and actually a lot of that media coverage is what got him elected, because he was in the cycle so much. Right. But I mean, some of the things that they criticize him on are based off his own behaviors. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think there are some times when he should exercise some restraint. But even still, I think, to me, people are looking at his personality more so than they're looking at the policies or the outcomes of those particular policies. To me, the outcomes of a policy is a lot more important than Trump's outward personality, how he's viewed in the world. I'm looking at the outcome of his policies, and if we have policies that are leading to, Black people who have better unemployment rates, and I'm all for it. I'm going to cheer that on all day.
So let me ask you, and we'll get to you, Clarity. But I don't think I've ever seen a president call, football team sons of bitches, or Maxine Waters a low IQ, or Don Lemon the dumbest person on TV.
We've seen that. Like we have actually seen that. When you had what is her name? Palin. I mean, they called her all types of names. I mean, we've had this
president, though. I'm talking about the president specifically. I'm not talking about the Republican Party.
Well, she was running for vice president. I mean, there still are people who are criminal. We had people calling George W. Bush names too. I mean, people got called names.
Yeah, he got called dumb a lot.
Yeah, it's not like this is new. I don't know.
Go ahead, Clarity Speaks. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm Trump supporter for the same reasons as Chi. And the funny thing is, I initially was not a Trump supporter. It's kind of funny. I was before I moved back to North Carolina to care for my mom, I lived in Atlanta for a number of years, and I was active a bit in the Republican Party right before the 2016 cycle, and I was almost a never Trumper. And that came a little bit from listening to my echo chamber and listening to people talk bad about him who didn't like him. And so long story short, just through doing my own research, looking back at footage of him from like the 80s and seeing how actually consistent he is on his foreign policy and so forth and so on. And then just making the connection of how it is that these people just have such venom towards him. Like it's an intellectual dishonesty to me in terms of the way in which we are attacking him or being so censorious towards him and ignoring equal reason to be censorious or suspicious or concerned about people on the other side. You know what I mean? So what I find in these arguments or in these questions, we're bringing a lot of presuppositions, right, to the table. And if we are, and I'm wanting to appeal to intellectual honesty, right? Like, can we all just be intellectually honest? Let's disarm, this is Republican, whatever. Are there good ideas? Are the ideas a good idea to have opportunity zones? Is it a good idea to have, prison reform? Are they good ideas? You know what I mean? And can we just work at the idea level? And that's also what pushed me over to him in terms of just looking at the ideas.
So, and I'm sorry, Janora and Abdul, I'll let you guys jump in. But what do you think of the way that he feels about the Central Park 5 and how he reacted and still reacts about that?
I did a whole hour and 30 minutes, 4-month review of the Central Park 5 case. Mm-hmm. I really think that everybody should take a look at that review on my YouTube channel, Considered Culture, because it is enlightening. If you only know of the Central Park 5 from the film, the Ava DuVernay Netflix film, you've been misled. I mean, even herself has said that it is biased and slanted. Those are her words. Quote I have on centralpark5.com. You can actually see her saying that. So in terms of Trump's comments on the Central Park 5, I think that Black people had the same comments in the 80s. Like if you watch any footage, news reels from that time, Black people were equally upset. They actually had a candlelight vigil for the victim in the projects where these boys were from. These are Black people who came out to show their support of the victim. And that was the way things were then. Like you couldn't have that today. In 2020, what Black person would dare to have a candlelight visual for something like that? I don't think that would occur. Mm-hmm. But in terms of what he, like, a lot of people don't read the ad. Like the ad is like the people like to hold up and say, hey, look, Trump was so racist. He had this full page ad, but has anybody actually took the time to read the ad? He doesn't even mention the Central Park 5 in the ad. He mentions, and if you know the history of New York City at that time, rape victims were the majority of them were Black and brown. He actually states that in the ad that, there's Black and brown women who are being raped and we need to stop this. This is just out of control. So this was like the tipping point. The Central Park 5 was a tipping point for things that had been going on during that time anyway. So it's just like that people don't look at things and frame them with you can't frame a 1989 situation with a 2020 mindset, because they're very two different things. Things that were going on in 1989 are not the same as they are today in 2020. And that situation with the Central Park 5, we could go on. We could do a whole show on the Central Park.
Right. Well, Abdul is from New York City. He was there when all this stuff happened. So, yeah, I know. I kind of go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was there at the time. I saw everything happen with the Central Park 5, the narrative around the Central Park 5. Even before that, racial tensions were pretty high around that time, stemming from the 80s up, because of what happened in Bensonhurst, because of what happened with things of that nature. But I sans that, all of that. Listen, because I could debate you on this back and forth, because he did say that they needed to be executed, and then and then when he found out that they weren't the victims, he didn't recant that statement at all. He stood on his ground on that. But let's say sans that. I don't even care about any of that part of it. My question to both of you is: do you believe the Republican Party have a Black agenda? And if so, what is it? And what is do you believe in a Black agenda? And do you believe the Republican Party has something specifically, some sort of set asides or things of that nature that should be for Black people? And if so, why? And if not, why?
Unfortunately, that question is a question that I think is I don't particularly like the idea of a black agenda. I think that black people are no different from. If you say those kinds of things, it almost infers that black people are somehow different than other groups. And yeah, we have cultural differences, right? I know that there are some cultural differences, but in terms of an agenda, I think Republicans probably do have some sort of agenda, and that's because there are questions like this that get asked. But I don't think it's necessary for them to have. I think if you have policies that are going to be beneficial to Americans in general, then black people should be able to make use of those policies and implement them into their own lives as well. I don't think that we're any different in that regard. If you think differently, then I have to think that maybe there's some sort of inferiority complex with you, and I talk a lot about that on my as well.
I'm sorry. Keep going. I apologize.
No, I'm good. Go ahead.
Clarity. I just wanted to get her point of view because she didn't have a chance to speak.
Yes, I believe that you are the black agenda. I am the black agenda. We are the black agenda. I believe that white supremacy has the only power that it has is the power that we give it. And my view, and one of the things that I want to communicate all the time, is we should outsmart and outmaneuver whatever the relics of racism are. That's just my position on it. I'm not looking for per se a black agenda, right? I'm not looking for that. I feel like we are the black agenda. You know what I mean? As a collective, we are only as strong as we are as individuals. So we are the black agenda.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do we believe that the government is there to lift people up, or do people lift themselves up? I mean, is it the government's job to lift us to where we need to be? I mean, did other migrant groups get lifted up by government, or did they do so on their own? And how
well, they got lifted up by government.
A lot of
people got lifted up by government. A lot of the Homestead Act was them getting lifted up by government. The New Deal was them getting lifted up by government. Like there's and black people were excluded out of a lot of these things. A lot of the opportunities, economic opportunities that black people didn't get was due to racism and due to policy. So yeah, they got a hand up.
I mean, you looked at times during like slavery, right? A lot of people don't. There's a guy named Junius Groves, right? Junius Groves He was known as the Potato King. So Junius Groves was a slave. He was able to do. He was really good at agriculture, and he had a plot of land set aside on the plantation where he worked, and he went into the town and he actually sold his own potatoes to whites in the community, and it actually bought his own freedom like that. This is during slavery, and we have many stories like this throughout history of black people doing amazing things under a lot more times than right now. So I don't like to this idea that black people somehow need to be lifted up by some external source, mainly white people or government. I think we're too strong to need that. I don't think I
don't think it's a need. I think it's leveling the playing ground. I think things like reparations or what have you is more of a what's the best way to put it? It's a debt. It's a debt owed to black people for discriminations from the time we got here until 1965. So it's not, it's policies do, like we right now, was it 2018? They just put a bill that didn't allow you to the Anti-Israeli Discrimination Act. You know about it, right? That you're not allowed to boycott any Israeli product or things of that nature. And my point about it is that there's a policy set aside for a group of people that helps them economically, and it's specific to that group of people. And I think the things that have happened to black people in this country, from a policy perspective, especially from an economic perspective, during the times that black people were able to lift themselves. You talk about Reconstruction, even that 7 years or so after Reconstruction, what happened after that? They came in and totally demolished it. And then when black people got targeted, they targeted for petty crimes. So then you could send them in jail and then put them out on loan for other people. Like there's specific things that happen to black people that have some sort of recompense for. That's the only point I'm making with regard to a black if you want black people to pull themselves up by their bootstraps, give them boots first.
Mm-hmm.
You still the end of that statement right there is what I'm talking about. You still like give us something at the end of the day.
If I owe you money, yeah, give me my money.
Yeah, but you owe your ancestors. You don't owe you. Nobody owes me.
It's you're making it as black people in this country and every other population who benefited off the labor of black people are at equal footing right now, and that's not the case. It's not even close to being the case.
Let's say this. Let's ask this question. Okay, so different groups from different areas, right? They all progress at different levels. Different for different reasons. Usually it's geographical, right? So you have there was a time when you had Egypt was this great place, right? And you have these different levels of economic growth. Who's to say that minus slavery, if black people just migrated here, absent of the slavery, would we be on the same economic terms as the people and I mean, when people come from Nigeria now, are they on the same terms as Americans? They're not, but nobody's saying, okay, give these people.
Not true.
I mean, obviously,
that's not true.
So
if you look at the numbers, if you look at the numbers, any black immigrants that come to this country have a wealth higher than the native black people in this country. That includes Caribbeans, because the people who come from us come with resources and they bring it back to this country, and they bring it to this country, and then they take it back out.
I used to house, and my mother housed Africans, Nigerians from Nigeria. They didn't have a dime. They came here with nothing, and then they left.
That's an aberration.
Okay.
That's not you're telling me a personal story, and I'm giving you the numbers of people from immigrants who came to this country. And most hold on, let's finish this point. And most immigrants, black immigrants, came into this country post 1980. They didn't have to deal with slavery. They didn't have to deal with Jim Crow. Up until 1980, there was only 800,000 black immigrants in this country out of 26 million black people. So they didn't have to deal with the stigma and all the things that happened to black people in this country. That's a different. You can't put these two things on the same level. It's not the same.
So let me just get to let me bring up Charity Speakz. I'm gonna let you make a comment that you wanted to get to, and then we're gonna let Janora jump in. And all of you guys who are out there that are watching, thank you for watching. The comments are coming in. We're trying to get them in, but everybody, we're trying to get all of this information out. If you're not seeing your comments here, just make sure that you're on the Chrystee Pharris page as well, and then we'll be able to get to some of these comments. Go ahead, Clarity Speakz.
I just had a quick question for Abdul about reparations. How do you want them to? What is your thought process or proposal on how that would be distributed, or you know what I mean? How would you like to see it happen? Yeah,
I would take the two different policies. There would be one. If you look what CARICOM put out for immigrations, the 10-point program that CARICOM put out in, 2009 with technology transfer, with specific educations for black people, whether it be a voucher to go to a certain school or build certain schools in certain neighborhoods. I would also look at the Luxembourg Agreement in '52 that the Jews got that the Israelis got for the Jewish people, with regards to repayment of services rendered with land, the same thing that the Jews asked for, specifically land, specifically there was another form of it. There was also in '52 they did the Jewish claim against Germany. I think that was also in '52. The Jewish material claims against Germany.
Dollars be involved? Will taxpayer dollars be involved? With taxpayer?
Yes, absolutely, yes. And the reason why I say that is, let me finish. The reason why I say that is because people keep framing this as a handout, and it's not a handout, it's a debt. And if you look at any group of people that come into this country, when you put your tax dollars in, regardless of what the debt is, your tax dollars is used for that debt. I don't care if you're a Palestinian and they're giving money to Israel for whatever, or you're an Armenian and they give money to Turkey, your tax dollars is used for those things. So why not?
Okay. So for me, my position on reparations is I'm kind of neutral on it in the sense that I'm okay with it as long as our tax dollars aren't paying for it, because what that essentially means is that you and me are paying for our own reparations. What I thought a long time ago when this came up, I was like, why don't we just, forgive all the debt, the student loan debt of Black Americans? You know what I mean?
I'm good with that. I'm good with Black people not paying taxes for a certain amount of years. I'm good with that too.
Something that would not involve our own taxes, because if you and I are paying taxes and then we're taking our own tax dollars to pay for our own reparations, I mean, that doesn't sound like we're not winning to me. So
I don't know. Like if you look at Dr. Sandy Darity from Duke, and you look at how he proposed it, with regards to who specifically it went to, what group of people, because in his specific plan, they would only go specific to African Americans from this who are descendants of slavery in this country. You look at tax exemptions, part of the program. You look at deferred education or education of what have you. You look at housing as another form of it. Like, it doesn't have to always come as cash, but there has to be there's have to be an upliftment for Black people in those sets of things. So all the things you said, I'm not opposed to, but I also do believe that if this country was so bold enough to put a price on Black bodies, where the fact that if a slave in 1865 was with 3 years worth of training was worth the price of a house, then yes, you owe me money for that specifically.
Let me just let Janora jump in and hi, Janora.
Hey, you guys. I've been working on keeping such a clean face while I'm just down here listening. And again, I'm going to go back to approaching out of curiosity and so I will turn it because I feel like that it's time to change the channel a little bit on the topic here. And personally, though, I think reparations should be in the form of investment back into the community. And I love all of the comments that have been on the side in terms of tax forgiveness, all this. Y'all are going in and keep putting them up there and keep chiming in. But in this idea of a change in subject is definitely something we wanted to hit on before our time is up today. And that, yes, Karen Ward Ross, she's our sister. Shout out to her and Tangerine, both on the line. Karen mentioned killing of our unarmed Black men. So we cannot have this conversation today with people from both ends of the spectrum and have 2 days ago, Jacob Blake be paralyzed from the shooting. I just want to open up this big old new can of worms for us to discuss and figure out what's going on. Because I feel like I don't want to say we, I didn't speak for anyone else, but in terms of the Black Lives Matter movement, I support it. I've marched. I know that that is not the overall feeling, though, among Black folks. So I just wanted to have this conversation with you, Clarity, and you, Chi, to see where you stand and what your thoughts are that could enlighten us in some way.
Go ahead, Clarity Speaks.
Oh, wow. That's a lot to unpack. Relative to the Mr. Blake shooting, I'm not familiar with all of it. I saw his mother speak, and the things that she was saying, I felt in alignment with that. But there's just a lot to unpack with this. I just feel as though because there's two separate things. There's just the separate thing of political manipulators utilizing these things to galvanize us toward a particular way in terms of voting. And then there's the problem of, police officers using excessive force. You know what I mean? So relative to the latter, there's a saying in the Bible, like, every man seems right until another comes, the first person who argues their case appears right until another comes and examines them, right? And so I don't know. Right now, I don't have a full opinion on that particular case, other than it's tragic what happened to him. And I don't think, him being shot that many times, that was problematic for me to watch. I didn't see any reason for that many shots.
Mm-hmm.
But
so how about you, Chi? How about you, Chi?
It's a lot.
Yeah, I saw that. I think that to go off of what Clarity just said, I think that the media does use these things to manipulate, and I think that ultimately is my big issue with these shootings. If you compare, one of the things that a lot of people when I talk about this, people don't know certain statistics like that. For example, Native Americans are the most disproportionately killed group by police officers. We don't hear about them, or the fact that white people are killed more frequently than any group. We don't hear about any of the whites on mainstream media. There's not a big outcry about it. For some reason, these particular, I did a Google search for Google Trends on this particular thing. I think I searched the term black male shot by a police officer or something like that. And what I saw is spikes every 2 years, right before election. Spikes every 2 years, right before election. Now, I wondered why that was. Now, also, another thing I looked at was how much CNN and others make every time that these things happen. And one thing that was crazy to me was the fact that CNN saw huge spikes following the Ferguson case. And after that, then you saw this repeating cycle of them using these cases to collect ad revenue. Now, no matter what you think about what's happening with these shootings, you have to, whether you believe, okay, the police are wrong or not, you have to look at the media coverage and say, how come they're only focused on one particular type of shooting and not another? It seems to me that there's some sort of benefit to media in terms of ad revenue and things like that, and as to why they're continuing to post these particular ones above others.
I agree. And if I could just add something in there in terms of the media and what they portray, I think it's which media outlet. For example, whether it's this one or George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Fox News only shows rioters, looters, and whereas a CNN or MSNBC only shows the act of excessive use of force and loss of life. And Chrystee Ware is on here. Hey, Chrystee, she put something very important when I brought this up, and that was loss of life should not be a partisan issue. So I guess then my follow-up question to that is, why has it become this partisan issue? Why can't we all get along or see the same thing? Why is it so different, or why has it become political?
I think it's useful to politicians. That's pretty much the basic reason. It is useful to political parties to latch on to these cases and use them if they know that people are going to have an emotional response, absent of any facts. With this recent case, as soon as it happened, it was all over the news. We didn't know anything other than what this little clip in the video showed. We knew that the guy got shot, but we didn't know the circumstances. There's a lot of other circumstances surrounding that. And automatically the media has these headlines that make you want to believe that it has something to do with race or anything else. We don't know that yet.
Okay, so can we, go ahead, Abdul. Go ahead.
No. Clarity was going to say something before I said something.
It just slipped my mind. Hopefully I can come back to it.
So can we go ahead, Abdul?
No, I guess a second question, just to add on what Janora was saying. Do you think that part of the problem with regards to policing and Black people is because the totality of the criminalization of Black people? It is like they shoot you, they stick you in jail, they over arrest you for the same thing that they don't over arrest people for. The conviction rates for people doing the exact same crime are 6 times higher for Black people. I think, don't you think all of that adds up to the reasons why the murder part of it is so focused on? Because it's like a domino effect. It's not just one thing. It's all of these things together that combines to the tension between Black Americans and cops.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you, but I don't think that a lot of ththose things that you said are narratives. That's the common narrative. Are they actual facts based in fact?
They are facts.
Sure. And some of it is not so much, but and I don't want to go into all of there's a lot to unpack in this. I think we would have to do an entire show on this particular case. But if you want to look at things like why Blacks are being arrested more frequently or things of that nature, you have to look at the offending and the victims. So Black people are the number one victim group in America of violent crime. So we're like 4% of the Black men. Young Black males make up about 4%. Young Black males, 4% of the U.S. population, but about 50% of those who are killed. Now that says something about rates of crime, especially violent crime. The majority of people who are locked up in prison aren't locked up for drugs. The majority of them are locked up for violent offenses. So there's that.
So crime Black to white is 2 to 1 white. And if you look at outside of, I understand the statistic that you're proving, but I know what you're saying. I'm getting to that point. Violent crimes is white crimes, white murders are just a hair above Black murders. But even if yes, Black, let's go with that number, because I also looked at the numbers. If you look at any other crime across the board, it's white people are do more crime, raping and larceny, and like if you let's look at the
FBI, you're talking about 43B, I think it's called.
Yeah.
43, yeah, but that's not by per capita. Now, if you do it per capita, and they don't separate Hispanics from whites. If you separate,
I understand that.
If you separate Hispanics from whites and you do it per capita, Blacks are basically killed at 6 times the rate of white people and Hispanics combined. 6 times the rate.
We're all incarcerated. Okay.
So if we're killed at 6 times the rate of other groups, that shows something. I mean, and then you have to think about who's doing the killing. It's not white people who are killing us for the most part. Homicides are intraracial, meaning whites kill whites, Blacks kill Blacks.
Blacks kill Blacks. Yep.
If we're such a small portion of society and American society, and we're making up 50% of the homicide victims, that says something about Black criminality, violent criminality in these particular communities. It does. There's no way you can.
Everybody. Any crime is about poverty. It absolutely is.
It's not.
Absolutely.
Black people were poor way before today, and they didn't have crime problems like they did today, where they were much poorer. And if you look at New York City, where you and I have, wait a minute. If you look at New York City, where you and I both have been, the number one, the most impoverished group in New York City is Asians. It's not Black people, and they have the lowest rates of crime and criminality. So it's not about poverty. The key factor, if you want to look at why crimes are happening, the key factor is not poverty. The key factor is who has come from a single parent home or not. And that, if you look at that, it almost always shows that people who come from single parent homes, and Black people, like almost 70% of us come from 60% come from single parent homes at this point. That is the main factor in the violent crime rates, and it's also the main factor in people who go to prison. Most of the people who are sitting in prisons right now grew up in single parent communities or single parent homes, and communities and homes are likely the same, because if you're the only person with a father in your community, everybody else has a single mother, your balance is still off. You see what I'm saying? So we have whole communities. There's some communities where Black people make up 90% of that community is single parent community, 90% of certain cities have a 90% out of wedlock childbirth rate in Black community. That's crazy numbers. So you can't.
That doesn't.
Poverty. It's not poverty. There's lots of evidence that it's not poverty.
I want to let Abdul make his point, and then we have a guest on the line, Donnell, that's going to jump in real quick. So go ahead, Abdul.
So single parent home thing, it's not exactly the same because there's also statistics that show that Black fathers, even in single parent homes, are more active in their children's lives than other groups of people.
That's not the same as father at the house.
That's not the point I'm making. The point I'm making, you're saying in single parent home, like the father's absent in the home. He's absent in the home, yes, but he's not absent in their lives. That's a whole completely different story. And it's not just poverty. It's poverty with access to opportunity, lack of access to opportunity, lack of access to proper education, systemic racism in this country. The fact these psychological warfare that they put on Black people with regards to self-esteem and things of that nature, showing all the things that Black people go through are wrong, but that Black people are wrong. It's way more than just. I do believe Black people have a self-esteem issue, but poverty is a big part of it.
Black people have the highest self-esteem of any group in America.
That's not.
That's interesting. I find that hard to be true because I just remember.
Look it up.
I mean, listen, I worked in the school systems and watching these teachers treat the people of color, the kids of color, always pushing them in the corner, and they didn't need to be there. Janora, let me let you jump on in. I'm sure you got something to say here.
It's a lot. It's a lot going on. And I'm trying. And Abdul, you are going in, and Clarity and Chi, y'all coming back at him. And
I love it.
Man,
we got the audience over here that's got a whole bunch of things to say.
Yeah, the audience is going in.
I know. I want to jump into some of the stuff too, but go ahead, Janora.
I guess I'm looking at the time again, and I want to make sure I get this in because I don't necessarily want to talk about a specific topic again because I do think topic, policy, we can debate, we can find common ground, but what I struggle with individually, going back to Donald Trump, and I listened to both of you, and I just want to ask a follow-up question from there. Charity, for you, you said you found the Republican Party through church, and I just want to hear your response to Donald Trump as a Christian, or how does he align with your religious views?
2 Corinthians
doesn't. He doesn't. I'm not looking at him as a religious figure or someone to appease I'm not looking for a pastor, if that's a better way to say it. I'm not looking for a pastor. His policy enables me to practice my faith in peace. That's what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. So when I say that he's in alignment with my values, the policies that he is advocating is for liberty, free speech, freedom of religion, and so forth and so on. So that is what I mean.
So not him as a person, but
no, I don't know, because I don't think that I can't speak on whether or not someone's really a Christian. He doesn't behave like, he's devoted to Christ, like, a pastor would be, you know what I mean? But I'm not even looking at him in that regard. That's not even my expectation. I'm looking for someone that will protect my freedoms to practice my religion. And so, and so far as that, he's the guy.
Gotcha. What about you, Chi?
I'm sorry. The question about Trump was.
Well, Chi, specifically for you, the question would be: you said it's his. You align with his values, and it was his policy. So maybe give me a specific policy. I just want to understand because
getting rid of regulations. I'm for him getting rid of the regulations.
Oh my gosh.
It has opened up. People. I'm sorry. Abdul. Was Abdul?
Yes.
Yeah. So he was talking about, opportunities for Black folks. I think, and you remove the regulations for people, the barrier to entry lowers, and I think that we absolutely need that. I think the barrier to entry when America began was low. So now that we have all these policies, it makes it difficult.
Charity Speakz, because I see some of my Christian friends and some other people.
They going in. They're telling me, you need some moral clarity. You don't have no moral clarity.
So do you want to respond to some of the things that you just read, or do you want? I can move on.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I'm not offended.
yeah. No, I mean, listen. These are. I wanted to have these conversations because, we really wanted to understand, and I wanted other people to receive a different point of view. I'm really hoping that because I do see some of the people that are supporting you guys that are on here. I'm hoping that on your pages that I'm able to read their comments as well. I'm not really sure. Are you seeing their comments on your pages?
I'm not looking at.
I'm not even looking at my pages.
Type of person. If I
I did want to respond. Someone said you wasn't able to practice your faith and peace during the Obama years. Again, that's a whole straw man type of argument. That's not what I said. He's advocates for freedom of religion. That wasn't really a issue with Obama per se. You know what I mean? And he did make some policies that seemed to threaten freedom of religion, but I mean, he has some ideas. How about that? Not so much policies. I didn't agree with Obama's religious policies, if you will. But as far as Trump, I just feel as though his thing is about liberty. And that's all I'm saying, is that I just want to be able to practice my faith without fear, and without fear of being, jailed because I say something biblical. You know what I'm saying? And so, but it wasn't an issue with me with Obama. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
I don't know if I'm making sense or not.
Yeah. So in the beginning, you did state, you were, you voted Democrat at some point in your life, but you just agree with Trump's policies. So you kind of, for the people who might have joined a little bit late, she wasn't always just pro Trump or pro policy.
Yeah, I wasn't pro Trump, so
but things kind of changed. Yes. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
I'm going to say that I haven't voted for Trump as of yet.
Gotcha. So you voted. Oh, so gotcha. So you're talking about with the new election. You haven't voted for Trump yet. Is that what you're saying?
I didn't vote for Trump previously.
Got it. And then you became a Trump supporter.
Right.
Gotcha. In the middle of it. Okay. I gotcha. I just want to make sure.
I just to respond to what she said about deregulation. I'm not opposed to all deregulations, but I'm not for this sort of Milton Friedman laissez-faire sort of idea of the way he approached deregulation, because a lot of deregulations will cause the housing market to crash, and it cause a lot of the supply side economics things that Reagan was doing in the 80s. For specific, I speak a lot of times when I speak about things, I don't speak about it specifically for the country. I speak about it specifically as it affects Black people. And I know you two may not agree to that, but that's what I'm speaking for. And those specific policies hurt Black people. And not to say that some of the Democratic ones, if we're talking about mass incarceration with the 94 crime bill and things of that nature that the Democrats pulled, didn't hurt Black people. But from an economic standpoint, a lot of deregulation caused a lot of Black people to lose a lot of money and to lose their homes and to lose farming and things of that nature. Now, I know if you look at what Obama did with the HAMP Act, with mortgages and things of that nature, that also hurt Black people, because Black people lost more money under Obama than up until what have you. But that aside, specifically to you two, because I know we're going long, if you had to make a pitch to Black people as to why you think conservatism and why you think, not specifically the Republican Party, but conservatism in itself is good for Black people, what would it be? How would you, in plain language that anybody would understand, if you say, I believe in conservatism and you should too, because what?
Clarity.
Again, I feel as though white supremacy only has the power that we give it. And I feel like you should become a conservative because you are not constantly given a message that reinforces the inferiority complex that slavery left. I feel like the message of conservatism is about empowering us, empowering people to see what they individually can achieve. And this is what I see on the left in terms of, you hear a lot of folks talk about, manifestation and destiny and Black excellence and things of that nature. But then you support people whose policies ultimately will make that difficult. And if you think that that is conjecture on my part, you can just look at all of the Democrat-run cities and the condition of Black folks there. And that is because you talk, the other thing too, we talk a lot about, the condition of Black people, but the places where Black people are faring worst are not run by Republicans, right? The Republicans are not even anywhere in sight, So again, you should become a conservative such that you could manifest your Black excellence. You can outsmart and outmaneuver racism. And the biggest fear of a racist is for those that they deem inferior to become formidable competitors. And I feel as though remaining on the left keeps you in an inferiority complex, which is advantageous to the oppressor. And yeah, it's a lot to unpack, but I'll just say, become a conservative so that you will not be constantly bombarded with messages that reinforce the inferiority complex that slavery left behind. Yeah,
I agree totally. Like, I speak a lot about the inferiority complex on my channel, and I think that there is some of that within our community. I think that Democrats have been very good at using the fact that we are sometimes hypersensitive to certain things, and they use that, and it's some form of control in my mind.
Right.
There's this interesting study, and it basically studied the way that liberals talk to Black people, and it said that liberals mostly talk down to Black people. They don't speak to them on their same level. It's like, hey, little Black person, how are you doing, and all this kind of thing. But they said that Republicans speak to you as if you're on the same level as they are. And I know when I first started going to GOP meetings in the area and things like that, I was really skeptical and everything because a lot of I was doing this in North Carolina. A lot of these guys were like, what you would see as a Southern white male, and I was kind of like, okay, how are they gonna react to me? And it was interesting to me that they didn't speak the same way. I've been in liberal circles all my life, I even went to school with quite a few liberals, and they talk very much down to you. They feel it's almost like this idea that you are beneath them. And then basically the definition of racism, which people don't seem to use anymore, is when one group looks at you as if you're an inferior. And the thing that I feel with people on the left is that they tend to look like, we need help. We need to help these Black people. These poor Black people need our help, and we need to be the ones to help them because they are ultimately inferior to us. And to agree that, yes, we do need your help, almighty white person. It seems to me that you're basically agreeing that the whites are superior, and you are in fact pushing forward this idea of white supremacy. And I just don't believe that that's true. I believe that we are equals and we can compete with white people. We just have to believe it first. And I think that conservatism ultimately has that it lifts you up to bring you into that thought process where you can actually compete as an equal rather than as someone who's coming from this victim standpoint or who is inferior.
Exactly. And that's what I wanted to say too. And as far as just like racism, at its core, it is really about competition. That oppressor did not want Black people to wake up and realize that we would be formidable competitors. And I suspect that when they saw our physical strength, right, they was like, there's no way that we can let them be educated. Okay, that is why it was illegal to read and so forth and so on, because we would have indeed become formidable competitors. And then, after the Reconstruction period and so forth, they began to sabotage. All right, as as a result of seeing our excellence come to play when we were not shackled and confined with all of the restrictions and discrimination and things that they were doing to us. So that's what we've been doing. And I really believe that the Democratic Party right now, I mean, again, knowing its history and its constant rebranding of itself from the KKK to the Dixiecrats to the Democrats to the liberals to the progressives, now Democratic Socialists, like, it's a lot to unpack, but we really need to, I want to ask you guys, like, why are you guys on the left, right? Why do you guys vote as you do? You know what I mean?
It's interesting because I feel like you sounded like the rest of the Democrats that are saying these are all the things that they've been doing. They did this, they did that, So for me, I feel like it's two reasons that I vote the way that I do. Definitely policy reasons. But I also vote because I just don't feel like the Republicans. Well, first of all, I can't do the Trump thing because I just feel like he's racist. I know you guys think differently. I feel like he's bringing out the hate. He's adding fuel to the fire. He's creating more a division, I feel like. And then the second reason is I feel like people are using religion, because I am a Christian. That's what I believe in strongly. Mm-hmm. I feel like they use that to get the Christian voters to vote for them, even though I feel like it's wrong. So I feel like Trump, the other Republicans, I never had an issue. That's never been my thing. But Trump, I feel like he uses the Christianity to get that vote. And I feel like he has nothing to do with Christianity. And I feel like they're being bamboozled. So that's why I have an issue with the other side. Now, I kind of, it's really focused about the Trump than the Republican issue. So, Janora, did you want to jump in?
Oh, yes. Oh, man, it's like I'm holding my breath down here in this little box. So much to say. I'm saying it in my head, and then I know. So okay, I know. But, wait. Let me just say this real quick before you jump in, because I know you about to lay it all out. But Reno Sanchez, he said, I'm a minister. I'm a minister for many years, and I would never support a racist as a man who says there is no need for him to ask God to forgive him. So I just wanted to make sure that we pointed that out. Go ahead. Yes. The reason I vote Democrat, and I think that's a great question, Clarity. And I think, again, going back to having this conversation and really working on it being a conversation and really just being curious and whatever. But I think it is good for us to put a mirror to why do you believe what you believe instead of because the majority of people do. But one main reason for myself is because they look like me. I cannot feel comfortable being part of a party and nobody looks like me. I feel like when watching the DNC and watching the RNC have been two completely different experiences for me. As in, I see myself. I mean, shoot, I talked about last week the butch black elevator security lady that nominated Biden. Images are important. Representation is important. Reparations are important too. But I remember the earlier conversation about tokenism and like, are these images really real or are they being used? Either way, it makes me feel way more comfortable in my skin and empowers myself to see potentially the next vice president of the United States looking like me and looking like my friend Lakshmi. We talked about this last week too, my Indian friend who called, and we could claim her both. And just what a beautiful way that America looks through the Democratic Party. And that is a huge reason for me. And some people might not get down with feelings and images, and they just want to be about policy. But who I am in terms of the thread of what makes me me, it is a feeling and a connection. And then the other part that's important to me specifically is I'm a member of the LGBT community. They let me get married. They made y'all bake a cake for me and my wife. So, I mean, not to put it that way, but it being able to say you support something from a very personal stance and not just because it's the majority is important. So those are two very specific, very personal reasons for me why I consider myself I consider myself an independent, because I do think this conversation is important to be able to stimulate independent thought. And I would love to ditch the two-party system and to move to something else that is evolving without checking certain boxes. I'm a Republican. This is what I think. I'm a Democrat. No, let's just reinvent all this shit. And I don't know how that can happen. And I know we stuck with what we stuck with for 2020. But for that, I still am hopeful and am proud for Biden-Harris 2020.
Mm-hmm. We're going to be wrapping it up soon, everybody. I know we're a little bit going over, but Abdul, go ahead and jump in there.
Well, I consider myself an independent, but if you're asking why I voted Democrat for the last several elections, I would have to say with their policies and economic standpoints, even if in theory, maybe sometimes not in action, but in theory, lines up with the things that I think give Black people a leg up more than the stuff that I've seen so like I am for states' rights, like a lot of conservatives are. I'm for myself, I'm pro-choice, but for everybody else, I'm I'm pro-life for everybody else, but for myself, I'm pro-choice, or however, you know what I'm trying to say. But the point is that a lot of the policies like I was for Glass-Steagall. I didn't like the fact that they deregulated that. I didn't like certain deregulations with regards to forests and things of that nature. I didn't like them allowing fracking in certain neighborhoods. I didn't like a lot of the policies that the conservatives were pushing to deregulate certain industries. I wasn't for. I think it hurt Black people because a lot of times those policies, supply side economics in its whole, in the way, however you want to describe it, if you want to call it trickle down, what have you, those policies tend to falter when it comes to people at the bottom. And Black people economically tend to be at the bottom, and those policies that they push across doesn't help us. And then over the over-enforcement of us, the privatization of jails, the privatization of healthcare, then wanted to privatize Social Security, then wanted to privatize a lot of things that they wanted to deregulate and privatize. I think it hurts Black people specifically, and that's who I'm speaking to, I should say, in this particular thing. So that's why I voted for the Democratic Party in the last several elections, because their policies, whether it be social, whether it be they believe in climate change, something like that matters to me. Mm-hmm. Even though a lot of you may say, I know some people don't believe in climate change, but if 99% of the scientists are saying it's true, I go with, we're talking about facts, just go with the studies.
So a lot of conservatives do believe in climate change. They just don't believe in that humans have the ability to. They don't believe that the ideas that Democrats have are what can solve it.
You talking about? Okay, that's a really long conversation. But I don't think that the way the conservatives are doing as well in terms of they suppressed a lot of technologies that would have helped cut emissions in this country for a long time. They were the ones pushing not to have electric cars for a long time. They were the ones pushing not to have certain. Matter of fact, it was conservatives who were the ones telling people not to collect rainwater in their homes. That was conservative states. So I think a lot of things that could have helped the climate, the conservatives were the ones pushing against it. Even if you think it's like a 1% or less than 1% effect on the environment. Something helps. Every little bit helps.
So let me just wrap everything up. It was an enlightening conversation. There were some things that I definitely understood what you guys were saying. I appreciate everybody out there giving their comments. Is there something you want to leave the audience with before we close out? Is there something that you want them to know, to take home with, so I'll let you, Chi, speak first.
I'll just, I guess I'll quote Malcolm X. He said, the worst enemy that the Negro have is the white man that runs around here drooling at the mouth, professing to love Negroes and calling himself a liberal. And it's following these white liberals that has perpetuated the problems that Negroes have. If the Negro wasn't taken, tricked, or deceived by the white liberal, the Negroes would get together and solve our own problems. And also check me out on .com/consider culture, Facebook.com/consider culture, and watch that Central Park 5 thing. It's really, really, really enlightening.
Wonderful. How about you, Clarity Speakz? Give some clarity out there.
Yes. As I said earlier, white supremacy only has the power that we give it. We have everything that we need to outsmart and outmaneuver racism. And it is our brain and the breath of life. We are not inferior. We weren't inferior during slavery. We're not inferior now. So take that and grow on it for sure.
I love it. I love it. Janora, would you like to leave? No, let me do you last because you're going to always come with love. Abdul, let me go ahead. Let me let you jump on in there, Abdul.
I would want to start out by saying thank you to both of you. I respect both of your views. I respect the fact that you both came on here knowing that it was going to be 3 against 1 or however, and you still came on and spoke your piece and allowed us to speak to your platform as well. I appreciate that. Even though we differ on certain things, I don't think we're too far off on other things. We just didn't get a chance to really delve into some of the things that we may agree on. And I'm pro-Black people, so conservative, liberal, what have you. I'm for all of us. So
yeah,
much respect to both of you guys.
And if I could recommend a couple books, I'm sorry, I meant to say that earlier.
Yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to recommend Basic Economics by Thomas Sowell. I wanted to recommend Color, Communism, and Common Sense by Manning Johnson.
Abdul, did you read both of them? Because I know you be reading everything.
I read one of them. I skimmed through the other one. I didn't, but I did read one of them. So,
okay.
But those good. But take her word on it. Those are both really. One of them I know is a good book. The other one I heard about. I didn't really get into detail about it. But yeah, please and educate yourself more about the conservative ideas because they're not as crazy as people think they are, especially with regards to what Black people want. I think the only difference from Clarity and Chi and mine's ideals are what is the jumping off point. I believe something is owed to us in order for us to get to a different space. But yeah, that's it. I'll leave it there.
Mm-hmm. All right, Janora. Oh wait, I was just about to say happy birthday to Mama, and that's why we call it James Nora, because Miss Nora. Say happy birthday to you. Go ahead.
Yes, yes. It was more time in the program. I see if I can coax Chrystee into singing for you. She got that voice. Yes, always ending with love, right? Abdul, I think you said it though. You wrapped it up. Hey, how about that? Abdul came with the love at the end.
I know, right? I used to come with the fire.
I know. I'm rubbing off on you, I hope. But absolutely. Clarity. Thank you, Chi. It isn't an easy space to talk. And it's only 5 of us in this room, or this virtual room, and it still got a little heated. And but it is a start, and hopefully it's an example to those watching and viewing, especially when, like, Chi, when you read Malcolm X's quote, like, what proud and Clarity is speaking about us, like believing in ourselves and not making excuses to be all that we can be. I don't think we're far off from each other, just kind of like Abdul was saying. I just feel like the more that we can find this common ground, then the more that we might be able to find another solution, create our own something and move forward. But it takes a whole lot to to sift through to find it when there's so many things that just get us heated and push buttons. But it's a start. So thank you for being part of the conversation. And I'm always going to keep hope alive.
Good.
And I just want to say, Abdul, did you have something?
Oh, I just wanted to say to Janora, don't expect this this attitude the next time around. What's that quote? What's that quote from the Carter family? God gave Noah the rainbow sign. There's no more water. It's the fire next time.
So I want to say what I got out of it was reading the comments, seeing everybody's perspective. What I also received from this is that we really do need to educate ourselves. That we do sometimes jump on the bandwagon because the majority of Black people are here or there or going this way, and we don't do our research. We base it off of what somebody else has told us, as opposed to doing our own research. But also in the midst of doing your research, you have to look at it from so many different resources, because one resource is not always correct.
That's right.
So we have to learn to, I feel like we're in a critical place, whether you decide that you're a Democrat or a Republican. We really have to make sure that we're paying attention to who we are putting in office, not just for the presidency, but also our local elected governors that are there. You know, we tend to just focus on one area, but we don't know who the judges are that we're voting for. Or, you know, and so I feel like we really need to make sure we are doing our research and being able to hear one another. And that was the reason why I wanted to bring all of this and have this in-house discussion with all of us, because we don't get a chance to talk about this amongst ourselves. And that's why I feel like it was important that we did this. And we'll probably do another show like this. So thank you.
Thank you.
Coming, Charity Speakz and Chi, and of course Abdul, absolutely Abdul and Janora. I felt like this is very important. Should I go ahead and wrap up and do this person of the week? I think we got to do this. We got to do our BPS of the week. Abdul, I'm gonna need you to pull that up for me. So as you guys all know, and for our guests that are on the show, we always like to end with a person who is doing something in the community. So our BPS person of the week is an 11-year-old boy looking to bless as many people as he can. At the tender age of 11, Jaquil Jackson has already helped over 20,000 homeless people in his city of Chicago, handing out blessing bags. Jaquil is serving his community through his organization called Project I Am. When Jaquil was only 8, he started his Project I Am in an effort to hand out toiletries, food, and water to local homeless people in Chicago. But since then, his charity has reached as far as Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., Atlanta, Virginia, and Idaho. Not to limit himself, his organization has provided goods for orphans around the world. In 2016, he was named Youth Ambassador by anti-poverty organization Heartland Alliance International. And in 2012, he was named one of the 3 most influential people by President Barack Obama. Today, Jaquil continues to help the less fortunate in any way he possibly can, and says, there's way more homeless people in the world than I could help, that I need to help. So for your selflessness efforts to those in need, Jaquil Jackson, you are this week's BPS person of the week. From all of us here at BPS, we would like to say that we are proud of you and support everything you're trying to accomplish. And if anyone would like to help or donate to Project I Am, please visit www.officialprojectiam.com, because every cent helps. I'm Chrystee Pharris, and that was This Week in Black people shit. So he's probably a Republican because he's lifting himself up from the bootstraps. Anyway, again, everybody who's out there, thank you for joining us. I'm sure we will do this again. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. And make sure you guys tune in again. We are taking a break next week, but we will return on the, is that the 4th? What day is that, you guys? No, the 4th is a Friday. So what day are we coming back on? I'm not prepared to tell you. No, we're not coming. So we're missing the 2nd.
Sorry, the 9th.
Oh, yes, we are coming back on the 9th, and our special guest will be James Hyde and that guy right there, which you probably can't see, but I'm going to show it to you. That guy right there that played my father, Rodney Van Johnson from Passions. We're going to have some fun, kick it, and talk about some cool current events. So make sure you guys tune in. Again, thank you to our guests. We will see you guys in 2 weeks. Have a good night. Good night, everybody.
Later.